Selena Johnson stood frozen just outside the emergency room doors of San Verde General Hospital. Her hands were clenched, her chest tight. 1 hour earlier, all 3 of her children had collapsed at school, one in the classroom, one in the gym, one in the art room. No warning. No signs. Just silence, then panic. Now they were inside. Unconscious. Hooked up to machines. And she knew exactly what the doctors would say. They would need the father's genetic sample. The man who said, 10 years ago, "Those kids aren't mine." It had started like any other Monday. The kids were tired, dragging their feet at breakfast, arguing over cereal. Micah had lost one of his socks again. Malik couldn't find his gym shoes. Maya had a stomachache but didn't want to miss art class. Selena had packed their lunches, braided Maya's hair quickly, and kissed all 3 goodbye as they ran to catch the school bus. At 11:52 a.m., she was wiping down the bakery counter when her phone rang. "Ms. Johnson?" The voice on the other end was calm but urgent. "This is Principal Gordon from Jefferson Elementary. Your children have been taken to San Verde General. All 3 of them." Selena dropped the rag, grabbed her keys, and didn't stop moving. At the hospital, she waited in a sterile white hallway outside the pediatric trauma unit. Nurses moved quickly from room to room. A monitor beeped steadily from somewhere behind the glass. She could see glimpses of her children. Maya lying motionless on a narrow bed, Malik hooked up to oxygen, Micah's hand twitching slightly. A young doctor approached. He looked serious, maybe 30 years old, with dark circles under his eyes and a clipboard in his hand. "Ms. Johnson?" he said. "Yes. I'm Dr. Patel. I've been assigned to your children's case. We're doing everything we can. They're stable, but we're seeing unusual neurological symptoms in all 3. Selena's voice was barely audible. "What does that mean?" "We believe this may be a hereditary condition. Their test results suggest an underlying genetic factor. To properly diagnose it and begin specific treatment, we'll need a full genetic profile." "I already filled out the medical forms." Dr. Patel nodded. "We've tested your side. But we need the father's DNA to complete the analysis." Selena didn't respond right away. She stared at Maya through the glass. The small rise and fall of her chest was the only thing keeping her grounded. "I'm sorry," Dr. Patel added gently. "But time matters. If there's any way to reach him." "I'll try," she said, barely above a whisper. She found an empty bench down the hall and sat in silence. Her hands trembled in her lap. She hadn't spoken to Julian Whitmore since the night she told him she was pregnant. He'd called her a liar, accused her of trying to ruin his future, said the timing was suspicious, said it couldn't be his. And then, like a door slamming shut, he vanished. No phone calls. No support. Nothing. She'd raised the children herself. 3 jobs. No weekends. No sick days. Every parent-teacher conference, every fever at midnight, every scraped knee. All on her own. And now, that man was the only one who could help them live. Selena reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. His number was still there. She had never deleted it. Her finger hovered, then pressed call. It rang once. Twice. 3 times. Then a click. Julian Whitmore. There was a long pause. "It's Selena." Another pause. Then, "Selena?" "There's no time for questions," she said. "It's about the children." "There's no time for questions," she said. "It's about the children." Julian's voice dropped. "What children?" "Micah, Malik, and Maya. They collapsed at school. All 3 of them. They're in the hospital right now." There was silence on the line. Selena continued, her voice clipped. "The doctors need a genetic sample from you. It's urgent. They think it's something inherited." "Selena, They could die, Julian." He sighed. "You really expect me to believe?" "I'm not asking you to believe anything. Just show up. Spit in a tube. Then you can walk away again, like you did 10 years ago." She ended the call without waiting for a response. 10 minutes later, Julian stood at his office window, phone still in hand. His assistant knocked lightly and stepped in. "Sir, your next meeting is in 5 minutes." "Cancel it." She blinked. Cancel the Meritech deal? Julian nodded once. Tell them I have a family emergency. Back at the hospital, Selena stood outside Maya's room. Malik stirred in the next bed. Micah was now awake, eyes blinking slowly at the ceiling. A nurse walked over. He's here, she said. Selena turned toward the hallway. Julian had just arrived. He was still in his suit. No tie. No emotion on his face. He walked straight up to her. I'm here. Where's the doctor? Selena pointed down the hallway without saying a word. He followed the nurse without looking back. Julian Whitmore walked through the automatic doors of San Verde General with his hands tucked into his coat pockets. He hated hospitals. The smell, the lighting, the forced silence. He scanned the front desk and walked straight to the elevator, ignoring the security guard who asked if he needed help. The nurse who met him outside the pediatric wing didn't smile. You're here for the Johnson children? He nodded. I was told to give a sample. This way. She led him past rows of curtained beds and beeping machines. Julian kept his eyes forward, avoiding the families in chairs, the children in gowns, the worried looks. He didn't come here for sentiment. They stopped in front of a small exam room. Inside was a man in scrubs, typing at a computer. He turned when Julian entered. Mr. Whitmore? I'm Dr. Patel. I'm treating the Johnson siblings. Julian nodded stiffly. What do you need? Please have a seat. This will only take a few minutes. Julian sat. Dr. Patel prepared a saliva collection kit and handed it to him. As you may know, the doctor began, your children are exhibiting synchronized neurological symptoms. We're trying to determine whether there's a genetic link causing this condition. We already tested the mother. Your DNA will help complete the profile. I'm not here to talk about fatherhood, Julian said, taking the tube. I'm here because I was told it's urgent. Dr. Patel didn't react. I understand. We appreciate your cooperation. Julian spat into the tube, sealed it, and handed it back. Is that all? For now, Dr. Patel replied. But I'd recommend staying in the hospital for the next few hours, in case we need further testing. Julian stood. Let me know if you need anything else. He left the room without another word. Selena was waiting outside, her arms crossed. She didn't say anything at first. Just looked at him, measured, guarded. You didn't even ask if they're okay, she said. Julian kept his tone flat. I figured if it were worse, you wouldn't have bothered calling me. I called because the doctors need you. I showed up. She stepped closer. That's not the same as caring. He looked past her toward the hallway of rooms. Which one is Maya? Room 3. On the right. And the boys? Micah is in room 5. Malik's next to Maya. Julian hesitated. They look like me. Selena didn't reply. You named them without me. I raised them without you, she said. A long silence passed between them. Julian checked his watch. I'll wait in the lobby. Before she could respond, he walked away. In the hospital cafeteria, Julian sat at a table near the far wall. He ordered black coffee and scrolled through emails on his phone. His assistant had sent 4 messages and 2 calendar reminders. A deal with a logistics firm was closing that afternoon. He ignored them all. Across the room, a little boy played with a toy ambulance, crashing it gently into the table leg and making siren noises under his breath. Julian glanced up, then quickly looked away. Back in the hallway, Dr. Patel updated Selena. The DNA sample is in the lab. We'll expedite the results. How long will it take? 6 to 8 hours. Possibly sooner. Selena nodded. And their condition? No changes yet. Maya's vitals are holding, but she hasn't regained consciousness. The boys are stable but lethargic. Selena stepped to the doorway of Maya's room. Julian was nowhere in sight. Dr. Patel followed her glance. He's in the lobby. Of course he is, she said quietly. 2 hours passed. Malik woke briefly, asked for water, and went back to sleep. Micah was more alert, asking why Maya wasn't talking. Selena answered what she could. The rest she left unanswered. At 4:15 p.m., Julian returned to the hallway. He stood outside Maya's room, watching through the glass. Her hand was still curled around a small stuffed bear. Her chest rose and fell slowly. Selena saw him and walked over. "You came back." "I never left the building." "Why?" "I don't know." Another pause. "She likes to draw," Selena said, nodding toward the sketchpad at the end of Maya's bed. "Mostly animals. Sometimes people. Sometimes faces she's never met." Julian didn't respond. "She once drew a man in a suit with a phone in his hand," Selena continued. "Said it was a dream. Said he never spoke." Julian kept his eyes on the window. Selena stepped back. "You can go if you want. No one's stopping you." He stayed where he was. That night, the hospital hallway was quiet. The sounds of daytime had faded, fewer voices, fewer footsteps. The hum of machines continued, steady and low. Selena sat in a chair outside Maya's room. The lights were dimmed. Across the hall, Micah and Malik slept under soft blankets. A nurse passed by and offered a warm cup of tea. Selena thanked her but didn't drink it. She pulled out a small notebook from her bag, old, worn at the edges. Inside were drawings, school schedules, and a single folded letter she had written almost 10 years ago. She had never sent it. A door creaked behind her. Julian stood there, holding a paper cup of hospital coffee. He looked like he hadn't moved in hours. "Still no change?" he asked. Selena shook her head. "I thought I'd check," he said. "You need anything?" "No." He nodded, then leaned against the wall near her. They sat in silence. After a long pause, she asked, "Do you remember how we met?" Julian looked at her, unsure if it was a real question. "The law firm internship." She nodded. "Summer of 2012. I was the receptionist. You were the golden boy. You brought me coffee every morning. You didn't even say thank you until the 3rd week. I was focused. You were arrogant," she said. Julian smirked slightly. "That too." They fell quiet again. Selena opened the notebook and took out the letter. "I wrote this after you stopped answering my calls," she said. "I was 5 months pregnant. I thought about sending it. I didn't." Julian didn't say anything. Selena unfolded the paper and read aloud. "Julian, you told me once that timing is everything. You said the wrong moment can ruin the right thing. Maybe this is one of those moments. Or maybe it's just the truth showing itself. I didn't plan this. I didn't trap you. I just wanted to talk. I wanted you to hear it from me, not from a rumor. I wanted to tell you I was scared too. That I didn't know what I was doing. But you didn't give me a chance. You walked away. And now I'm alone." She stopped there. Julian was still. "I kept it," Selena said, folding the letter again. "Not because I hoped you'd come back. I just needed to remember what it felt like to speak." Julian's voice was quiet. "Why didn't you ever tell the kids?" "They never asked. They never wondered? Of course they did. I just didn't want them to grow up angry." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I don't know what to say," he muttered. "You don't have to say anything," she replied. "It's not about us anymore." A nurse appeared from the hallway. "Ms. Johnson, Dr. Patel wants to meet with you in the morning. He'll have some early results." Selena stood. "Thank you." The nurse turned to Julian. "You're listed as emergency contact now. If you want to update anything, let us know." Julian looked surprised but didn't object. As the nurse walked away, Selena said, "I figured since you're already here, you should be on the paperwork." He nodded once. Then, for the first time all night, Julian looked into her eyes without turning away. "They're good kids," he said. "They are. Maya reminds me of someone. She reminds me of who I used to be." Julian didn't ask what that meant. They both stood quietly outside the room, watching the slow rise and fall of Maya's chest. They both stood quietly outside the room, watching the slow rise and fall of Maya's chest. Selena broke the silence. "I delivered them alone." Julian didn't speak. "It was a C-section," she continued. "Emergency. They came early. I was 29 weeks. I named them in the recovery room." Julian kept his eyes on the floor. "You know what the nurse asked me first?" she said. "If the father was coming." I said no. She didn't ask again. From across the hall, A faint sound came from Micah and Malik's room. The door creaked open slightly, and a small voice followed. "Mom." It was Malik. He stood in the doorway, rubbing one eye with his fist, still wearing his hospital bracelet. Selena walked over quickly. "You're supposed to be sleeping." "I was thirsty." Julian stepped forward. Malik saw him. The boy looked at Selena. "Who's that?" Selena paused. "A friend. He came to help." Malik nodded slowly. "Okay. I'll get you some water," Julian said. He turned and walked toward the nurse station. Selena led Malik back to bed. By the time Julian returned with the small paper cup, the boy was already lying back down. He took the water without question, sipped quietly, then turned his face to the pillow. Selena pulled the blanket over his shoulder. Julian stood near the door, watching. "They're stronger than they look," she said. He replied without hesitation. "They get that from you." She didn't answer. They stepped out of the room and closed the door gently behind them. Back in the hallway, the two of them stood side by side again. Neither spoke for a long while. Finally, Julian said, "If I had known." Selena cut in, calm but firm. "You did know. You just didn't want it to be real." He didn't argue. She looked toward Maya's room. "I'm going to stay here tonight." Julian nodded. "So will I." Selena glanced at him but said nothing more. She walked toward Maya's door and went inside. Julian stayed in the hallway, watching the light under the door settle into stillness. The next morning, the air in the hospital felt colder than usual. Selena sat beside Maya's bed, brushing her daughter's fingers gently with a damp cloth. Maya still hadn't woken up. Malik and Micah were both resting, quieter now. The nurses had adjusted their medications overnight. A few of the monitors beeped slowly but steadily. Julian returned around 7:30, holding 2 coffees. He handed one to Selena without a word. "Thanks," she said, not looking up. Dr. Patel arrived 15 minutes later with a clipboard and a neutral expression. "I have the DNA results," he said. Selena stood. Julian remained seated, one leg crossed over the other. "We confirmed the paternity," Dr. Patel said. "Mr. Whitmore is the biological father of all 3 children." Neither of them responded. "We've already submitted the combined genetic profile to our research team. They're working to identify a specific mutation. Once that's mapped, we can target treatment more precisely." Julian sipped his coffee. "So what's next?" "We continue observation and monitor for any neurological changes. Maya's condition is most urgent. The boys seem stable for now." Selena asked, "How long until you have something definite?" Dr. Patel checked his notes. "Initial findings might come in the next 48 hours. Full sequencing could take longer." Julian nodded. "If you need another sample, we'll let you know." Dr. Patel turned to leave, then paused. "We'll also assign a case coordinator. Given the family connection, we'll need joint consent for certain treatments moving forward." Julian raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "Meaning both legal guardians need to be involved." Selena exhaled slowly. "Fine." The doctor left them in silence. Julian stood. "So now it's official." Selena didn't answer. "I thought maybe one of them wasn't mine," he added. "But all 3. That's something." Selena looked straight at him. "They were always yours. You just never looked." Later that afternoon, Selena stepped out to call her mother. Julian stayed behind, sitting beside Maya's bed. He glanced around the room. Crayons on the windowsill. A tiny pink sock under the chair. The edges of a drawing taped to the wall. He stood and walked over. The picture was uneven, clearly done by a child. 3 kids were holding hands. Behind them, a tall figure with no face stood under a tree. He turned when he heard movement. Micah was standing in the doorway, watching him. Julian nodded. "Hey." Micah came closer. "Are you a doctor?" "No." "Then why are you here?" Julian paused. "Helping the doctors." Micah tilted his head. "You look like Malik." Julian smiled slightly. "You think so?" "Same eyebrows," Micah said. Julian sat down. "Want to draw something?" Micah hesitated. Then he nodded and climbed into the chair. Julian handed him a fresh sheet of paper. "Do you know how to draw a rocket?" Micah asked. "I can try." They began sketching together. The lines were uneven, but neither of them minded. Selena returned a few minutes later and stopped at the door. She watched quietly as Micah pointed to the boosters and Julian labeled the control panel. When Micah went back to his room, Selena entered. "I didn't ask you to play Dad," she said. Julian set the crayon down. "He came to me." She crossed her arms. "Don't confuse being present with being permanent. I'm not trying to prove anything. But because you can't make up 10 years in 10 hours. He didn't respond. Selena walked to Maya's bed and adjusted the blanket. "You did what the doctors asked. That's all I needed." Julian stayed where he was. "What do they need now?" She looked at him, tired but calm. "They need time. And someone who won't leave." Julian nodded once. "Then I'll stay." Selena didn't reply. She pulled a chair closer to Maya's bedside and sat down. Julian remained standing, his hands in his pockets. "Do they know anything about me?" "No." "Nothing at all?" they asked once. "I said it wasn't the right time." He looked toward the hallway. "And now?" She gave a slight shrug. "You're here. They'll ask again." "I'll answer if they do." Selena didn't look at him. "Just don't lie." "I won't." She finally met his eyes. "Then start with your name." "Not Mr. Whitmore. Just Julian." He nodded. "Fair enough." The door opened slightly. Malik peeked in. "Mom? Can I have my soccer ball?" Selena stood up. "It's in the bag. I'll get it." Julian stepped aside as she walked out. Malik stayed in the doorway, glancing into the room. He looked at Julian again. "You were with Micah earlier." "I was." "Do you like drawing too?" "I'm not very good, but yeah." Malik stepped into the room. "Maya draws really well. She made a picture of a man with no face. She said it was someone from a dream." Julian didn't answer. Malik continued, "She never draws people unless they mean something." Selena returned with the ball and handed it to him. "Back to bed after 10 minutes." Malik nodded and ran off. Selena looked at Julian. "She draws what's missing, not just what's there." Julian sat down again, quiet. Outside, the hallway lights dimmed slightly. Another hour passed. Neither of them left the room. The following day, the hospital allowed short visits between the children, one at a time, with supervision. It was part of their mental recovery, Dr. Patel said. Familiar voices could help. Selena brought Micah to visit Maya first. He sat beside her bed holding a book about planets. "I read this one to Malik already," he said. "But Maya likes the pictures more." Julian stood in the corner of the room, watching. Micah glanced at him. "Do you want to hear too?" Julian hesitated. "Sure." Micah opened the book and started reading. He didn't miss a word. His tone was flat but focused. Every planet had a fact. Every fact had a footnote. Julian listened quietly. When Micah finished, he looked at his sister. "When she wakes up, I'll read it again." Selena smiled. "She'd like that." Micah turned to Julian. "Do you work with space stuff?" "No," Julian said. "I work with numbers. Business." Micah nodded. "That's cool too." He stood, gently touched Maya's hand, and walked out. Julian looked at Selena. "He's serious. He's a scientist trapped in a third grader's body." Later that afternoon, Malik was allowed to stretch his legs in the hallway. A nurse brought a soft foam soccer ball from the pediatric therapy room. Julian leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching as Malik dribbled the ball back and forth in socks. "He's always moving," Selena said. Malik stopped and pointed. "Want to try?" Julian raised an eyebrow. "Me?" "Yeah." Julian stepped forward. Malik passed the ball. It rolled straight. Julian tapped it back. Malik smiled. Again. They passed the ball 5 times, then 10. Selena watched from a nearby bench. After the 12th pass, Malik said, "You're not bad. For someone in dress shoes." Julian laughed softly. "You either play a lot, or you're just lucky." "I play," Malik said. "Forward." Coach says I'm fast. Julian nodded. I can see that. Malik kicked the ball one last time, caught it with his hand, and walked back to his room. He doesn't sit still, Selena said as he passed. Not even in his sleep. That evening, Selena brought out one of Maya's sketchbooks from home. She placed it beside her daughter's bed, hoping it would bring some sense of familiarity. Julian sat nearby, silent. Want to see what she draws? Selena asked. He didn't answer, but she opened the book anyway and handed it to him. The first page showed a cat wearing glasses. The next was a treehouse with 3 windows. Then a picture of 3 kids holding hands in front of a small brown house. On the 4th page, Julian paused. It was a drawing of a tall man in a gray coat, standing near a doorway, hands in pockets. No face. But the suit looked like his. He looked up. She drew this. Selena nodded. 2 weeks ago. He stared at the page for a few more seconds, then closed the book. Does she talk much? Not as much as her brothers. But when she does, she means it. They sat in silence again, the sketchbook resting between them. She likes quiet, Selena added. But she's not weak. Just still. The next morning, Selena walked into the cafeteria to grab oatmeal. When she returned, Julian was sitting in a chair near Malik's bed, holding a small red notebook. Micah was explaining something with a pencil. And then if you double the digits, it makes a square, he said. Julian looked confused but interested. Wait, so 9 times 9 is 81. 8 plus 1 is 9. Always comes back. Exactly. Micah beamed. Selena entered, raising an eyebrow. Math club already? She said. Julian stood, placing the notebook down. I just learned something new. Micah smiled and walked out, holding his pencil like a trophy. Selena looked at the notebook. That's Malik's. He writes plays in it. Julian blinked. Wait, Malik writes? Scripts. Short ones. Mostly sports-themed. One time he wrote about a soccer team saving the world. Julian glanced toward the hallway. They're nothing alike. No. They're 3 different worlds. He nodded slowly. But they orbit the same sun. Selena tilted her head. Where'd that come from? Micah, Julian said. Page 2 of the space book. Selena cracked a smile. He has a fact for everything. You ask him about frogs, he'll give you 5 species and a Latin name. Julian leaned against the wall. That was me when I was his age. Then I guess some things do pass down. A nurse stepped in. Mr. Whitmore, the case coordinator would like to meet with you both to go over next steps. Selena looked at the clock. Give us 10 minutes? The nurse nodded and left. Julian turned back toward Maya's room. Can I sit with her alone? Selena hesitated, then said, she might not respond. But she'll know you're there. He nodded. That's enough. She stepped aside and watched him walk in. Inside the room, Julian sat beside the bed. He looked at the small girl's hand resting above the blanket. He didn't touch it, just looked. The monitor beeped softly behind him. He spoke low. Hey Maya. Julian. I know we haven't met before, but I've seen your drawings. And your brothers are great. Really great. He paused. I hope you open your eyes soon. They miss you. He stayed a few minutes longer. Then quietly stood and left the room. Selena was waiting in the hallway. She didn't ask what he said. She simply nodded toward the elevator. Let's go meet the coordinator. That night, around 2 a.m., the machines in Maya's room began to beep faster. Her oxygen levels dropped suddenly. A nurse rushed in, followed by Dr. Patel. Selena was already awake. She had been sitting in the same chair for hours, eyes fixed on her daughter. What's happening? She asked. She's in respiratory distress, Dr. Patel replied. We need to assist her breathing. Please wait outside. Selena stood but didn't move. The nurse gently touched her shoulder. Please, ma'am. Reluctantly, Selena stepped into the hallway. Her hands were trembling. Julian had fallen asleep on a couch just a few feet away. The sound of the alarm woke him. He sat up immediately. What's wrong? Maya, Selena said. Something's wrong. Julian stood. Together, They watched through the glass window as two nurses adjusted wires and Dr. Patel inserted a breathing tube. Selina gripped her own arm tightly. Julian noticed. "She's strong," he said. Selina didn't answer. After 15 minutes, the machines calmed. The beeping slowed. Dr. Patel came out a moment later, pulling off his gloves. "She's stable again. We've put her on assisted ventilation. It's not ideal, but it buys us time." "Time for what?" Julian asked. "For the treatment plan. We're narrowing down the cause, but until we get a full match, we're managing symptoms." Selina's voice was dry. "How much time?" Dr. Patel hesitated. "Hard to say." Selina nodded, then re-entered the room without another word. Over the next 2 days, Selina didn't leave Maya's side. She ate when the nurses reminded her, slept only when she nodded off in the chair. She read to Maya from old storybooks, wiped her daughter's hands with warm cloths, straightened her blanket, hummed songs Maya liked. Julian came and went, mostly stayed quiet. He brought food, signed forms, talked to the doctors when Selina was too tired to stand. On the third night, a nurse stopped Julian in the hallway. "She won't rest," the nurse whispered. "She hasn't slept more than 2 hours total." Julian nodded. "I'll try." He walked into Maya's room. Selina was adjusting the pillow again. "You need to rest," he said. "I'm fine." "You're not." "She needs me." Julian pulled up a chair. "Then let me sit with her. Just for an hour. You can rest outside." Selina looked at him. "I won't leave," he added. "You have my word." She hesitated, then slowly stood. 1 hour. She stepped outside. Julian sat down. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. He looked at Maya. "She doesn't know me," he said quietly. "But I'd like to change that." Selina dozed off in the hallway. When she woke, it was morning. She panicked and rushed back inside the room. Julian was still there. He hadn't moved. Selina paused in the doorway, then exhaled slowly. "You didn't leave?" "No." "She didn't wake?" "No." Selina sat down. "Thank you." Julian didn't answer. He just looked at Maya. Later that day, Malik and Micah were wheeled in for a brief visit. Selina helped them into chairs. Micah held Maya's favorite plush animal. Malik brought a tiny card with a drawing of the 3 of them and a 4th figure holding a balloon. "We drew this together," Micah said. Julian looked at the card. "Who's the 4th one?" Malik pointed. "That's you." Julian blinked. "Me? You were here." Selina said nothing. Julian took the card and placed it beside Maya's bed. That night, as Maya slept under dim lights, Julian pulled out his phone and looked at a photo of himself 10 years ago. Young, successful, alone. He stared at it for a long time. Then, quietly, he deleted it. He slipped the phone into his pocket. The room was dim and quiet. Selina had stepped out to take a phone call. The nurse on duty adjusted Maya's 4, then walked away. Julian sat back down. He reached for the sketchbook Selina had brought earlier. Flipping through it again, he paused on the blank page. He picked up the crayon Maya had left last week. He stared at it, then slowly wrote 4 names in block letters. Micah, Malik, Maya, Julian. He closed the book. A soft knock came at the door. Selina stepped back in. "Everything okay?" she asked. He nodded. She noticed the sketchbook, slightly shifted on the table. She didn't say anything. Julian stood. "I'm going to check on the boys." "They're in the playroom with the nurse," she said. "Mind if I join them?" "No." He reached for the door handle, then paused. "You can rest now," he said. "Just for a little while." Selina hesitated, then sat down in the chair beside the bed. Julian looked back once, then walked out. Down the hall, he found Malik and Micah sitting at a small table, playing a board game with colorful tiles. Malik spotted him. "You're late." "For what?" Julian asked. Micah grinned. "You're red. We saved your pieces." Julian chuckled and pulled up a chair. He didn't know the rules, but he was there. Julian stood in the hallway outside the pediatric playroom. Through the glass window, he could see Malik teaching Micah how to spin a foam soccer ball on one finger. Micah kept dropping it. Malik kept laughing. Julian knocked gently and opened the door. Malik turned. "You're late again." "I brought snacks," Julian said, holding up a small paper bag from the cafeteria. Micah grinned. "As long as it's not pudding." "Cookies," Julian replied. He sat at the edge of the table while the boys devoured the treats. They talked about cartoons, school lunch, and a class pet named Mr. Wiggles who had mysteriously disappeared. "Probably got tired of the noise," Julian said. "No," Malik said. "He escaped." Micah nodded. He had a plan. Julian smiled, just faintly. After 15 minutes, the nurse called the boys back for medication. As they stood up, Malik looked at Julian. "Are you staying today?" Julian hesitated. "Yeah, I'm staying." In Maya's room, Selena was standing near the sink, refilling a water cup. Her posture was slower, movements heavier. She hadn't eaten all morning. Julian stepped in. "Let me take over for a bit." "I'm fine." "You said that yesterday." Selena placed the cup on the side table, then sat down slowly. Julian moved beside the bed and adjusted Maya's blanket. "I think she moved her fingers," he said. Selena perked up. "Really?" "Just once. Could have been reflex, but it was there." She looked at her daughter's hand for a long time, then leaned back. "She hasn't heard your voice today," Julian said. Selena began to speak, but halfway through her sentence, she stopped. Her head dropped slightly. Julian stepped forward. "Selena?" She didn't respond. He reached for her shoulder and touched it gently. "Selena?" She slumped sideways in the chair, unconscious. Julian moved quickly. He called out the door. "Nurse!" Within seconds, a team rushed in. Selena was moved to an observation bed down the hall. The nurse explained that she had likely fainted from exhaustion and low blood sugar. "She'll be okay," the nurse said. "She just needs rest and fluids." Julian nodded. He sat in the chair beside her temporary bed, waiting. 20 minutes passed before she stirred. Her eyes opened halfway. "What happened?" "You passed out," he said. "You haven't slept or eaten properly in days." She tried to sit up, but Julian stopped her. "Not yet. Take it slow. I need to get back to Maya. You need to get stable first." She looked like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. Back in Maya's room, Julian returned with the sketchbook and sat beside the bed. He opened it to a blank page and began to draw a rough house with 3 windows. Then a tree. Then 3 small stick figures. He added a 4th figure beside them. When he finished, he looked at Maya's hand. He placed the crayon beside her fingers. Outside, Micah and Malik stood near the door, watching. Malik whispered, "He's drawing now?" Micah nodded. "Maybe he's learning." That evening, Dr. Patel stopped Julian in the hallway. "I just wanted to say, you've been here a lot." "I'm trying," Julian replied. The doctor nodded. The team noticed. "So did your daughter." Julian raised an eyebrow. "She hasn't opened her eyes." "No," Dr. Patel said. "But we believe she can hear everything." Julian looked toward Maya's room. "I'll keep talking then." Julian returned to Maya's room. The light above her bed was dim. He sat in the same chair Selena had occupied for days. He pulled the blanket higher over Maya's feet and glanced at the drawing he had finished earlier. The 4 stick figures under the tree looked uneven but complete. Julian leaned forward slightly. "You've got smart brothers," he said. "One builds rockets in his mind. The other never stops moving. But you're the quiet one." He paused. "I don't know what you've heard about me. Maybe nothing. But I want to be here now. I really do." He looked at her still face. "You don't have to wake up for me. Just know I'm here." He stayed with her until the nurse stepped in again. At lunchtime, Selena tried to get up from her observation bed. Julian blocked the way. "Not yet." She frowned. "You're not the boss." "No," he said. "But I'm the one who stayed." She raised an eyebrow. He added, "That has to count for something." She looked away but didn't argue. "Rest," he said. "I'll update you if anything changes." She leaned back, eyes closing again. 5 minutes. Julian smiled faintly. I'll give you 10. That afternoon, the boys were taken to a reading room with a volunteer teacher. Julian sat outside, reviewing a folder of paperwork the hospital had handed him. Medical forms, consent signatures, insurance documentation. For the first time, his name was written next to parent/guardian. He stared at it for a long time, then signed. It was just after 6 in the morning when Maya's fingers twitched for the second time. Julian saw it. He leaned forward. Maya? No response. Her hand remained still. He called the nurse. Her fingers moved. Twice now. The nurse came in and checked her vitals. No changes in oxygen, but that's promising. She adjusted the monitor and left. Julian looked at the sketchbook still lying on the table. He flipped it open and turned to the drawing he had made. The one with the 4 stick figures under a tree. He picked up a crayon and added something new, a balloon above one of the figures. Then a dog in the corner, badly drawn. You do better than this, he said to her. He looked at her face. You still like art, don't you? Still no answer. But she twitched again. This time her foot. Julian stood up and walked quickly into the hallway. Get Dr. Patel, he told the nurse. 15 minutes later, Dr. Patel arrived. I saw her foot move, Julian said. Not just once. Dr. Patel ran a small reflex test and nodded. Good. This is what we hope for. He turned to Julian. Keep doing what you're doing. By mid-morning, Micah and Malik came in for a supervised visit. Julian stayed back, letting them have space. Micah placed a new drawing on Maya's lap. This is the moon base I designed. You'd live in Module 3. Malik bounced a small soccer ball gently at her feet. You still get goalie duty when you wake up. The boys stayed for 20 minutes before the nurse led them out. Julian stepped in again. He picked up both drawings and put them next to the pillow. You've got a team waiting, he said. He sat down. Later that day, while Selena rested, Julian asked the nurse for extra crayons. He returned to the room with a handful of them in a plastic bag. He took out the sketchbook, flipped to a new page, and wrote at the top, If you see this, draw something back. Then he left the book open and placed a purple crayon next to it, just under Maya's hand. That evening, Selena walked into the room. Julian was sitting in the chair, watching Maya. He stood up. She moved again. Selena rushed to the bed. What moved? First her fingers. Then her foot. Just little things. Selena looked closely. You sure it wasn't reflex? Could be. Could also be her waking up. She sat down, eyes locked on her daughter. I'll stay here tonight. Julian didn't argue. The next morning, just as the sun came through the window blinds, Selena gasped. Julian. He turned from the window. Selena was pointing to the sketchbook. On the page where Julian had written his message, a small shape had been added. A purple heart, drawn in shaky, uneven lines. He rushed to her side. Maya, Selena whispered. Did you do that? Maya didn't open her eyes. But her fingers moved again, this time gripping the crayon. Julian blinked. She answered, he said. Dr. Patel arrived quickly and checked her again. This is a good sign. She's responding to external cues. Selena held Maya's hand. She heard us. Julian stared at the heart in the book. She answered me. Later that afternoon, Julian brought Malik and Micah into the room. She drew something. Micah said, Let me see. Selena showed them the page. Malik grinned. That's her favorite color. Julian nodded. That's why I left it for her. Micah whispered, She's waking up. I think so, Selena said. Julian looked around the room. For the first time, it didn't feel like he was visiting someone else's family. He was in it. And it started with a drawing. That evening, Selena sat beside Maya and flipped through the sketchbook again. She's still holding the crayon, she said quietly. Julian nodded. That heart was shaky. But it was hers. Selena ran her fingers over the page. She never draws hearts unless she means it. Julian leaned back in the chair. So that means she knew who left the message. Selena closed the sketchbook slowly. Maybe she's always known. Micah peeked into the room, holding a folded piece of paper. I made her something else. He walked in and handed it to Selena. Inside was a cutout star with the word, "Welcome back," written in red crayon. Julian smiled. She's going to love that. Micah looked at him. You think so? I do. Malik entered behind his brother. We should decorate the wall. Selena raised an eyebrow. With what? Malik held up a roll of tape. We got permission. Julian stood. I'll help. The three of them carefully taped drawings, stars, and colored shapes above Maya's bed. When they finished, the wall was covered with bright paper and uneven designs. Malik pointed. Now when she opens her eyes, she'll know she's not alone. Julian looked at Selena. Neither of them said anything. But they didn't need to. The next morning, Julian arrived earlier than usual. He came with 2 gift bags. One had coloring supplies. The other, 3 brand new tablets, already charged and wrapped in paper. The nurse greeted him outside the room. The boys are in the playroom. Maya's stable. No major changes overnight. He nodded and stepped into Maya's room. Selena was sitting at the foot of the bed. She raised an eyebrow at the bags. What's all this? Something for the kids, Julian said. Selena looked skeptical. You didn't have to buy anything. They need something to take their minds off all this. Selena didn't argue. She stood and stretched. I'll go find the boys. You stay here. Julian set the bags on the chair and sat beside Maya. He pulled out one of the tablets and placed it gently on the bedside table. Good morning, he said softly. This is for you. But no pressure. You don't have to draw today. He reached for the sketchbook. It was still open to the page with the purple heart. Malik and Micah came in minutes later. Julian handed each of them a tablet. Micah looked at it. This is new. Yours, Julian said. Malik opened the box. Oh, it has games. Preloaded. Educational ones, mostly. Micah turned his on. The screen glowed bright blue. Thanks, he said. Malik was already swiping through the menus. Selena returned with a bag of juice boxes. She took one look and crossed her arms. Julian looked up. Too much. They don't need screens. They need time. Presence. I'm trying, Julian said. I know. Just don't try to replace everything with money. He nodded, slowly. Noted. Later that day, Julian sat with Micah in the hallway. The boy had brought a workbook and a pencil. Want to see my math project? Micah asked. Julian smiled. Sure. Micah flipped to a page full of hand-drawn graphs. This one shows how much time we spend with people each day. Julian leaned closer. What's the biggest section? School. Then sleep. What about now? Micah pointed to a new chart. Now it's mostly mom. And a little bit Julian looked at him. That's fair. Micah tapped his pencil. Time counts more than stuff. Julian nodded. Yeah, you're right. That evening, Malik walked into Maya's room holding one of the tablets. Julian looked up. Everything okay? Malik nodded. I wrote something. He handed Julian the device. On the screen was a short script. Title, The Day My Sister Woke Up. Characters, me, Maya, Micah, and Julian. Julian read it silently. It was only 3 pages, written in simple lines. At the end, Malik had written, and the quiet man didn't leave this time. Julian looked at him. You wrote this? Malik nodded. Based on what I want to happen. Julian cleared his throat. That's a good ending. Malik said, then don't mess it up. He walked out. Selena, standing by the door, had heard everything. Julian handed her the tablet. He's blunt. He's observant, she replied. Later that night, Julian stayed after Selena had gone to rest. He sat beside Maya again and opened the sketchbook. He drew nothing. He just held her hand. The next morning, Julian returned with coffee in one hand and a plain notebook in the other. Selena was already awake, folding clean clothes on the side table. He handed her the coffee. No screens this time. She gave a tired smile. Thank you. What's the notebook for? She asked. Julian held it up. I thought maybe Malik could write in it. Or Micah. Or you? Or you, she said. He didn't answer right away. Then he opened the front cover and wrote a line. Day 7, Maya is still quiet, but we're still here. He left the book on the table. Later in the day, Malik sat beside Julian in the lounge. Why don't you live with us? He asked. Julian hesitated. I didn't know you existed. Not until recently. Malik looked at the floor. I thought maybe you didn't like kids. I do, Julian said. I just didn't know how to be a dad. Malik nodded. Well, now you kind of are. So you better learn. Julian smiled. I'm trying. Malik leaned back. Micah says we should let you try. And what do you say? I say you still owe me a soccer match. Julian extended his hand. Deal. In the hallway, Selena spoke quietly with Dr. Patel. She's getting stronger, he said. Small signs, but consistent. Selena looked into Maya's room. What are the chances? She's fighting. And she's not alone. Julian joined them. Anything I can do? Dr. Patel looked at both parents. Just stay present. And talk to her. Julian nodded. That I can do. That night, the notebook had more pages filled in. Micah had drawn another graph. Malik had written another short scene. And on the bottom corner of one page, in faint purple crayon, were 2 new hearts. No one said a word when they saw them. They didn't have to. It was a quiet afternoon. The boys were in the activity room. Maya was sleeping peacefully, her oxygen level stable. Julian stood near the window, reading over paperwork from the case coordinator. Selena entered with a worn envelope in her hand. I want to show you something, she said. Julian turned. What's that? A letter I wrote. A long time ago. She walked over and sat in the chair beside Maya's bed. Julian followed, sitting across from her. I wrote this when I was 5 months pregnant, she said. I didn't send it. I kept it. She opened the envelope, unfolded a single page, and began reading aloud. Julian, I don't know if you'll ever read this. Maybe you've already forgotten my name. But I need to write it anyway. I'm pregnant. It's yours. All 3 of them are. I didn't expect you to disappear. I thought maybe you'd be angry, maybe confused. But I didn't expect silence. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for anything. I just want you to know they exist. They will grow up, and they'll have questions. And I don't want to lie. But I also don't want them to feel rejected before they can even speak. If you choose not to be in their lives, that's your choice. But you'll miss so much. You'll miss first words, first steps, school pictures, tears and laughter and midnight feedings. And one day, they'll look for you. And I won't know what to say. Because the truth is, I'm scared too. But I'm still here. Selena. When she finished, she folded the paper and placed it on the table. Julian didn't say anything for a moment. He looked at the envelope. Why didn't you send it? I wanted to. But after a few weeks, I figured the answer was already clear. Julian stared at the floor. I don't remember you ever sounding like that. Selena looked at him. That's because you never asked. He nodded slowly. I didn't know what you were carrying, he said. Not just the pregnancy. Everything else. I didn't need you to fix anything, she replied. I just needed you not to run. Julian exhaled. I ran. Selena didn't respond. Maya stirred in her sleep, shifting slightly under the blanket. They both turned to her. Julian stood. Thank you for reading that. You needed to hear it. He walked to the window, hands in his pockets. Can I keep it? He asked. Selena paused, then nodded. Yes. But only if you do something with it. What do you mean? Don't fold it up again and forget. Don't act like hearing it was enough. Julian met her eyes. I won't. That evening, the boys returned. Malik noticed the envelope on the table. What's that? Selena picked it up. Just something I should have thrown away years ago. Micah tilted his head. Why didn't you? She looked at Julian. Because sometimes silence isn't the end. It's just what happens before someone's ready to speak. Julian stepped forward. You boys want to hear a story? Micah and Malik looked at each other. What kind? Julian held up the letter. The kind where the ending changes. Malik climbed up onto the bed beside Selena. Is it a sad story? Parts of it, Julian said. But it's not over yet. Micah sat cross-legged on the floor, hugging his sketchbook. Julian unfolded the letter again. He didn't read it this time. He just held it. I missed so much, he said. And I know I can't get it back. He looked at both boys. But I can be here now. If you'll let me. Micah asked, like every day? Or just sometimes? Julian replied, every day if you want me. Malik looked at Selena. She gave a small nod. Okay, Malik said. But you have to come to my soccer game when I get out of here. Julian smiled. Deal. Micah added, and help me build my rocket project. Deal again. Malik looked at the sketchbook. Can you draw? Julian chuckled. Not very well. Micah handed him a crayon anyway. Try. Julian drew a stick figure under a tree. Next to it, 3 smaller ones holding hands. He added a heart in the corner. The boys laughed. It's crooked, Malik said. It's honest, Micah replied. Julian handed the book back. I'll get better. Later that night, Selena sat alone beside Maya's bed. Julian had taken the boys back to their room. She looked at her daughter's hand. Then reached for the letter, still on the table. She folded it carefully and slipped it into Julian's bag. She whispered, You heard it. Now live it. It happened just before sunrise. Selena was half asleep in the chair beside Maya's bed. Julian was on the couch near the window, a blanket over his legs, still wearing yesterday's shirt. The room was quiet except for the soft beep of the monitor. Then a faint sound broke the silence. Mom! Selena's eyes snapped open. She leaned forward, unsure if she had imagined it. Maya blinked slowly. Her lips parted again. Mom! She whispered, barely louder than a breath. Selena stood up so quickly the chair scraped backward. I'm here, she said, voice trembling. Baby, I'm right here. Julian stirred, sat up, and looked toward the bed. Maya blinked again, her eyes finally focusing. Her lips moved again, slower this time. Thirsty. Selena grabbed the water cup and gently placed the straw to Maya's mouth. She took 2 small sips before resting back on the pillow. Julian stood now, walking to the foot of the bed. She's awake, he said quietly, almost in disbelief. Selena nodded, tears already in her eyes. She's really awake. A nurse walked by and stopped mid-step. Selena called out, She's talking. The nurse rushed in, checked Maya's vitals, and stepped out to call Dr. Patel. Julian remained silent, watching Maya's every move. Maya's gaze shifted toward him. She looked at Selena, then back at Julian. Her voice was hoarse, but her question was clear. Is he my dad? Selena froze. Julian didn't move. Maya repeated, softer. Is he? Selena nodded slowly. Yes, baby. That's your dad. Maya blinked. Okay. Julian opened his mouth, then closed it. Selena reached for her daughter's hand. You don't have to say anything else. Maya whispered, I knew. Julian stepped closer. How? Maya looked at the sketchbook still resting beside her. He drew the balloon. Selena looked at the book, then back at Maya. Julian smiled faintly. That was supposed to be a dog. It looked like a balloon, Maya said, almost smiling. Dr. Patel arrived moments later. He checked Maya's reflexes, asked simple questions, and noted her responses. She's weak but responsive, he said. This is a very good sign. He turned to both parents. We'll need to monitor her over the next 24 hours. But this changes everything. Selena let out a breath she'd been holding for days. Julian just nodded. Later, when the nurses cleared the room, Julian stood beside Maya again. He spoke softly. Can I come back tomorrow? Maya nodded once. Yes. He reached out and gently touched her shoulder, then stepped back. Outside, in the hallway, Malik and Micah were playing with a deck of animal cards. Selena came out, smiling. She's awake, she said. The boys jumped to their feet. Can we see her? Micah asked. Not yet, Julian said. But soon. Malik looked at Julian. Did she say anything? She said I was her dad. Micah grinned. You are. Julian nodded. Yeah, I am. That evening, Maya asked for her sketchbook. Selena handed it to her carefully. Maya turned to a blank page and drew a simple picture. A man in a suit. A little girl holding his hand. No face. But this time, the figure had a smile. Julian sat nearby, watching her draw. He didn't say anything at first. Then softly, "Is that me?" Maya nodded. "I don't think I've ever been in a drawing before," he said. She added a sun above the figures. Then a tiny soccer ball near the corner. "That's for Malik," she said. Micah peeked through the door and walked in. Maya looked up. "You brought my bear?" Micah held it out proudly. "He never left your room." Maya hugged it gently. Malik stepped in behind his brother. "Can I sit?" Selena nodded and helped him onto the edge of the bed. Julian stood and let the three siblings sit close together. They whispered to each other, exchanged inside jokes, and passed around crayons. Selena walked over to Julian. "They'll be fine," she said. Julian replied, "I'm starting to believe that." She looked at him. "You coming back tomorrow?" "I'll be here first thing." Selena nodded. "Bring breakfast. They like pancakes." He smiled. "Got it." That night, before the kids went to sleep, Maya handed Julian a folded piece of paper. He opened it slowly. Inside was another sketch, a family of 5, holding hands. Underneath, in block letters, it read, "Let's start from here." Julian didn't speak. He simply folded the paper, placed it carefully in his jacket pocket, and nodded. 2 weeks later, the hospital discharged all 3 children on the same day. Maya walked slowly, holding Selena's hand. Malik pushed the elevator button 5 times even though once was enough. Micah clutched a paper bag full of drawings. Julian waited by the exit doors, holding a set of balloons. "No clowns?" Malik asked. Julian smirked. "You said no clowns." "Good." Maya looked up at him. "Did you remember?" Julian smiled. "Yes. Chocolate cake. And exactly 3 candles." They left the hospital together. That afternoon, Julian opened the door to a small party room at a neighborhood community center. It wasn't fancy, no streamers, no music. Just one long table, a homemade cake, paper plates, and 4 folding chairs. Selena helped Maya sit down. Micah checked the table for name cards. Malik ran straight to the gift pile. Julian stepped forward, clearing his throat. "So, I've never done this before, but I figured you deserved something." He handed each child a small gift bag. Micah opened his first. Inside was a telescope kit. Malik's bag held a soccer ball with his name on it. Maya's had new markers and sketch pads. They said nothing, but their smiles were enough. Selena walked over. "This was a good idea." Julian replied, "It wasn't mine. It was in Maya's notebook." After the cake was sliced and most of the frosting ended up on Malik's nose, Maya stood and tapped her fork on her glass. "I want to say something." Everyone turned to her. She looked at Selena, then Julian. "Thank you for not giving up." Julian opened his mouth, but Maya kept going. "And thank you for coming back." He swallowed. "You're welcome." Micah chimed in. "Are we allowed to call him Dad now?" Selena raised an eyebrow. "Only if he earns it." Julian looked at the kids. "How about we try it once? See how it feels." Malik shrugged. "Thanks for the ball, Dad." Micah followed. "Thanks for the telescope, Dad." Maya smiled. "Thanks for staying, Dad." Julian blinked quickly and looked down at his plate. Selena handed him a napkin. "Don't drop cake on your suit," she said. Later, as the sun set, Julian helped clean up. The kids packed their gifts and drawings into boxes. Selena wiped frosting from the chairs. Before they left, Maya handed Julian one last folded paper. "Open it later," she said. He nodded. That night, Julian sat alone in his apartment. He unfolded the paper. It was a drawing. 5 stick figures again, all holding hands. One word above them in block letters. "Staying." He placed it on the table. then went to set 3 extra places for breakfast. The next morning, Julian was up before dawn. He opened the blinds, warmed up the kitchen, and started pouring pancake batter onto a skillet. The coffee brewed in the background. He set the table for 5. At 7:03 a.m., the buzzer rang. He opened the door. Selena stood there with the kids, all dressed and sleepy-eyed. "Hope we're not too early," she said. Julian smiled. "You're right on time." Malik rushed in first. "I smell pancakes." Micah followed. "Is there syrup?" Julian pointed to the table. "2 kinds." Maya stepped in slowly, holding a sketchbook under one arm. She walked to the table and sat across from Julian. He placed a plate in front of her. "Chocolate chip pancakes. Just like you asked." Maya smiled and reached for her fork. After breakfast, the boys raced to the living room with a toy helicopter Julian had found in a catalog. Selena helped with dishes. Maya sat on the counter, quietly drawing. Julian dried the plates. "She really said it, huh?" he asked. Selena nodded. "She did." Julian looked at her. "You think they'll keep calling me that?" "I think," Selena said, "if you keep showing up, they won't stop." Julian chuckled. "Guess I'll need a minivan." Selena raised an eyebrow. "Easy, Whitmore. Let's survive this week first." Later that afternoon, the kids packed up their bags. Maya slipped her drawing into Julian's jacket pocket before leaving. As they headed out the door, Micah turned back. "See you tomorrow, Dad?" Julian replied without hesitation. "You bet." That night, after the apartment grew quiet again, Julian unfolded Maya's newest drawing. This one showed 5 figures in a row, again holding hands, but this time with a roof drawn above them. One simple word underneath. "Home." He stared at it for a long time, then placed it on his desk, next to his watch, phone, and keys. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories about love, redemption, and second chances. What would you have done in Julian's shoes? Let us know in the comments. And remember, sometimes the greatest gift you can give is to simply stay.